So today I thought I'd take a little bit of time to talk about some Dungeons and Dragons content. As you know, if you've been following the channel, my life is knee-deep in Dungeons and Dragons. Not just because I do it for a living, but because I actually enjoy the game. After 30-odd years of playing it, I'm still kind of learning about it and finding new ways to present it to new players. So today's stream is going to be dedicated to just learning a little bit about how you can present, just one option of how you can present Dungeons & Dragons online through a virtual setting. So that would be essentially just playing D&D online with friends and whatnot. In the case of myself, this is a really sort of near and dear thing to me because I primarily play Dungeons & Dragons online through my my students that I teach it to. So I really need to keep my finger on the pulse as far as how to iterate and how to present D&D online. And it's not as easy as you think. I mean, there's tons of solutions out there. Roll20, Foundry, there's lots of tabletops. And of course, we have the new tabletop coming from Wizards of the Coast, which is the new virtual tabletop that hopefully will be coming out in the new year or later this year as a playtest. Today I'm going to talk about the pros and cons, and I'm going to talk about one specific one called Above VTT. Now, Above VTT is a plugin, is an extension to your web browser. It is an independent project. It's not actually official, but it is got a lot of polish. And specifically, when installed, it can stitch together with your D&D Beyond account as a Dungeon Master or a player, and you can actually synergize the two quite well. I'm going to show you how that works today. So the first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to go and get the Above VTT extension. Now, I won't go into that detail on how to install it specifically in this video, but if you want to know, you can either comment in the live stream or when this makes its way onto YouTube, you can put it in the comments. But suffice to say, if you're using Chrome or Firefox or even Microsoft Edge, you can go and get the Chrome version of Above VTT. So you just type in Google Above VTT. It's an extension, install it, simple as can be. If you're on Firefox, same thing, just insert the keyword Firefox. I'm going to show you what it looks like to know that you've got it installed. So I'm going to go to my collections here, and I'm going to go to my campaigns. I'm going to scroll down here and pick on the one that I'm working on today, Dragon of Icespire Peak. I've got 4 players in that campaign. I'm going to go here and view it. Now, the one thing that you're going to see when you know that your Above VTT extension is installed is it's going to look a little different. At the top here, you're going to see a little Above VTT, join as DM, or if you're a player, join as player. But I'm going to join it as a DM. You'll see here that I've actually put in my landing page some stuff. A lot of players or a lot of DMs don't necessarily fill their landing page up with anything. I like to put a cover page and a little description of the campaign. Not that all my players are actually going to stop and look at all of that, but you know. So I'm going to join it as a DM. And it's just a disclaimer, and it's talking about all the people who have contributed to it. It is a Patreon service. You can subscribe to it. At some point I probably will, but I'm going to just play the field here for now. I'm going to close this. And my screen might be taking a little while to load some assets and whatnot, mainly because I'm streaming this at the same time, so you have to forgive some of the load times. So it's going to load in your Above VTT tabletop. This is how simple it is. Done. So what it's done is, now I'll show you how I've got to this particular screen here, but it's basically just imported your D&D Beyond account into the Above VTT extension, or however you want to describe it. So I'll just walk you through some of the essential tools and then show you how I'm using them to improve my game and help my players. So first off, over on the right-hand side, you're going to see an option to pull out this sidebar. Now there is default options to zoom in on your map. And again, I'll show you how to get maps into Above VTT. But yes, there are zoom options there. So you can extend that out, and that's going to show you your tools. So you're going to have the game log, which is imported from D&D Beyond. So any rolls your players do in D&D Beyond will show up in this game log. You don't have to keep flip-flopping back between D&D Beyond and Above VTT. It's basically just the same. Over here, you're going to have a list of all the tokens that are in game. Now, Above VTT actually generates tokens for players, meaning if you have a player in your campaign, you don't need to go and create a token for this character. I'll give you an example here. If I see one of these players and I want to add them to my virtual table over here, I just click plus, and boom, it's now added Thorak Dragon Scale to the table in a circular token format, complete with HP and armor class. So right there, it's going to list all of your tokens, but also going a little bit further, it's actually going to pull tokens from multiple sources. It's going to pull them from some curated by Above VTT. It's also going to have folders set up for different monsters. It's also going to have, for example, down here, if you scroll, D&D Beyond tokens. So this is a searchable index. I believe it's a searchable index pulled from all the supplements that you own in D&D Beyond. So if you own the Monsters Manual, obviously it's going to curate from the Monster Manual. If you own other supplements for D&D, it will obviously give you the ability to search for them as well. So that's really cool on the fly if you want to find a token and slap it on. Here's what I like, and this goes to sort of the synergy aspect. Encounters. It is now pulling all of your custom encounters that you've created in D&D Beyond, and it's listed them here. So if you go into D&D Beyond and create an encounter for your players in D&D Beyond, which I recommend you do if you're going to embrace the D&D Beyond virtual table, you might as well make your encounters in it as well, because not only is it a way to put your encounters or a place, but it also gives you the ability to stitch in your monsters and have their stats readily available. So on that point here, I've actually gone and created, for this map here, I've gone and created an encounter in D&D Beyond, and it's called Approaching Butterskull Ranch. So if you click on it, you'll see that those orcs are actually pulled from the encounter that I have. So I can go ahead and add those orcs in. I can just click on that encounter. I can add it over here, I can add it over there, and boom. It adds all 3 of those orcs. I think it added all 3, did it not? Let's zoom out and see. No, it just added the one, so let me just add each one. I was probably clicking too fast. So let's add the next one. Yeah, and I'll add the third. And you'll notice that it gives each orc a different color. That's important because as a DM, when you're trying to keep track of hit points and stuff, you want to be able to not accidentally, wound one orc while meaning to wound another one. So it's worth noting that it didn't import the encounter. So right now, I have an encounter in D&D Beyond. It pulled the tokens over, which means my encounter is in D&D Beyond, but it doesn't pull the actual encounter. There's no way to actually read the encounter here. This is just the token side of things. But it does know that those are the tokens I used in the D&D Beyond encounter. I'm going to go to the next step here for you. So now we have our scenes. Scenes is Above VTT's way of saying maps. For the most part, this is just basically a scene that I've created. It's not meant to be a tactical table at this moment. I'm running this particular campaign as a theater of the mind. Although, if you look at the map, it could be used as a tactical map. If you wanted to zoom in on it, you'll see that it is gridded out. I probably wouldn't, if I was playing the game, I wouldn't use this map. I would probably go and get a better resolution or custom map. But this one for my Theater of the Mind campaign suffices, because all I really want to do right now is just, when I'm playing, keep an eye on the overall scene. Meaning over here, it's got a list of all the different rooms. It's basically the Dungeon Master's version of the map. My players who are playing with me today won't be stitching into the Above VTT. They are going to be using a Theater of the Mind roleplay experience. But for me, the Dungeon Master, I can see this. The cool thing about that, though, is they are using D&D Beyond, which means they're using D&D Beyond on their end. I'm going to see all the rolls pour in here just by going to my game log, for example. So it's kind of like behind the DM screen at the moment for this group that I'm running. There are some audio sounds. I haven't really played with this yet to see exactly what this is. I believe it's SoundPad, where you can load in ambient noises and such like that, sounds. I'm not using that feature, but it is available. Here's the one I really wanted to talk about. So, for all the good that D&D Beyond has, there are some things that I don't like about it. One, it doesn't really have a great editor as far as like a document editor goes. So I am putting my putting my encounters in D&D Beyond in the encounter section, and it does have a section to write campaign notes. but it's not up to the level of organization that I'm looking for. And especially in the encounter section, there's no formatting. You can't bold anything, you can't underline anything, you can't highlight anything. It's a real basic, just type text in here about your encounter. So I'm kind of torn on that aspect because one, Above VTT doesn't stitch in my D&D Beyond encounters. And two, my D&D Beyond encounters aren't formatted for easy reading and just ease of organization. So I turned to Above VTT, and I really got to send it out to these guys because they've created a great editing tool. So here I've added a chapter. It's called the Butterskull Ranch Adventure. It's just one section of the ongoing campaign. And I've gone down here and I've created individual scenes or individual encounters, individual sections of it. So if I click on the Butterskull Ranch, it's going to close the folder. Open it up. It's got the first one, which is Overview. So I'm going to click on Overview. Now, Above VTT did a great job on this. They have a proper editor. So what you're seeing here is my notes that I'm typing in about this particular section of the campaign, of the adventure. And not only that, but it's actually even pulling in, if I want to, I can pull in the information from my encounter. So right now in D&D Beyond, my encounter for this section is simply just titled Entry into Butterskull Ranch. Or whatever that encounter was. And I've imported it in, but all I'm really needing from D&D Beyond for it is just the ease of pulling in the monsters associated with that encounter, the tokens, as it were. I'm not actually going to be referring back to the actual encounter notes. So just if you want to see it, I'll go over here and I'll show you. Go to my encounters. I'll show you what the encounter I'm about to show you looks like in D&D Beyond. So here's my encounters. I chose the Shadow or Dragon of Icespire Peak, so it puts them all there. And you'll see here it says Approaching the Butterskull Ranch. So I'm going to click on that. This is a counter that I made and I put it just for this campaign. So you'll see here 3 orcs, short summary, players approach the ranch, they spy 3 orcs, encounter description, pretty basic, entering the ranch, main house, blah, blah, blah. That's it. I didn't actually go through the effort of putting all of the encounter details in D&D Beyond. Why? Well, like I said, it has no editor, so it's going to make it just a wall of text. But 2, I don't need to. So going back here, I've put all that information into my overview in Above VTT. Even though the players aren't actually going to be using this virtual table, I'm going to sit here with this screen up so that I can see all my notes and stuff in its entirety without skipping back between windows. I've got the travel to the ranch, and I've even got encounters along the way. This is basically my DM notes here. And then I just refer to them as I go. I read out the flavor text. And then when I'm ready to run the encounter, I simply, once I get to that part in my flavor text, and you're going to see here on the screen, all of this formatting, all this is done in Above VTT. The colors, the text box, even the stat windows, like you see here, like pulled right out of how they do it in the D&D handbooks and such. This is all done natively in Above VTT. So I don't actually have to go and get creative. I just type it in and I format it. This is something that D&D Beyond really needs to take note of. But here we go. Arrival at Butterskull Ranch. So when I get to this part, again, I'm just staying in here. I'm not in D&D Beyond. I'm doing all my work right here. So when I get to it, it talks about the encounter. And all I need to do is just go back over here to my tokens, select the appropriate encounter, which in this case is the Approaching Butterskull Ranch, which I did earlier, and just it pulls up the map, and the tokens go with it. Or sorry, it doesn't pull up the map because I've already got it there, but the tokens go with it. So now I'm going to show you how you can manage this encounter. So I don't need this necessarily. I mean, I can keep this, but I'm going to close it for now because I can refer to it at any time. And now I'm going to run the encounter. So again, this is all done theater of the mind on my player's end, but I've got all this stuff here ready for me. So I'm going to close this window so I can get some real estate and it's not going to distract me. And I'm going to zoom in a bit here. So now as we're playing, you're probably thinking, well, Dwayne, don't you have to like jump between D&D Beyond and Above VTT to get all your stats for your... No, you don't. So because I've created a scene and a tabletop here, even though my players don't see it, I can actually just I mean, these right now we're not even using this as a battle map. So I don't even need to worry about where these tokens are and stuff, right? Because this is all invisible to the players. They're not here in my Above VTT virtual table. So I'm just going to move these tokens wherever I want them. But all the stats are here. So watch, I'm going to right click on this token. And again, this is lagging because I'm streaming at the same time. But when you right click on a token on screen, you've got the ability to pull out the monster stat block. You've got a lot of other options if you are using the virtual table. You can adjust the token, you put conditions on them, and I'll show you where that might come in handy here. But let's watch. Let's go to this open monster stat block. There you go. Let's give it a second. So it just pulled the monster stat block from D&D Beyond. I don't need to flip back and forth between windows. I can just keep it here. My players aren't going to know any different because they're not using the virtual table. They're just tuning in on D&D Beyond with their character sheets and listening to me. But everything I do here, so if you watch, I'll just go back over to the game log here. And again, just don't take this lag as a default or as a defect in the system. This is just because I'm streaming. So I've got this pulled up. I'm playing with players. I can do all this without flicking windows. I can say, you know what, they're going to attack you. I just go here and I click just like in D&D Beyond. I click it. And I think I've got the dice set up to roll onto this tabletop. That's pretty bad, right? That's the lag. It's all using web-based applications, and unfortunately my laptop is away from my router. But point in case, it rolls into D&D Beyond's game log. Everybody sees it, you know, and I don't have to flip-flop between different pages, which is cool. I'm going to show you something else here. So initiative. What you can do is we click over here on combat, and we have a clean initiative tracker. So I can go over here. Once this is ready to go, I can just right click on here and I can add them to the combat tracker. So that orc's been added to the combat tracker. I'm going to add this one to the combat tracker as well. And I'm going to go over here and add this one. And you notice actually they're still color coding them as well. Okay, so I have 3 orcs, all color-coded, so no way to get confused in that. And I can even add a player in here, and although I don't have any players right now, I'll show you what that looks like. The players automatically get added to the combat tracker when they roll initiative, but here I'll show you what it looks like if I wanted to add Tovin in, or I'll just add Griffzilla. Or Danaeus. So here we go. Add them in. And I don't know if I can roll initiative or if I have to add the combat tracker. Okay, I think because I'm the DM, I have to add it in, but the players automatically. So there you go. They're added to the combat tracker. Now for initiative, if I'm wanting to add, I'm wanting to roll initiative, I just right click on the orc and I go open monster stat block. And I think, let me just double check here and see. Boom, 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 boom. I'm trying to think where my initiative option, because I remember I had this problem last time, is that when I rolled, it didn't roll initiative right from the D&D Beyond, because D&D Beyond stat blocks, for whatever reason, enemies, monsters, things that don't have initiative built into their stat blocks. They have dexterity. So let me just double check here and see if there's a way to roll. No, that just pulls up the stat block there. Let's go and see. Yeah, there is a way to roll it. I just can't remember, so I'll have to get back on that. But there was a way for me to roll initially. It just slipped my mind. But within the, unless it's on the token. Hide token, quick rolls. No. So you might have to roll and then manually do it. That's one thing. So you, for example, if you wanted to manually roll initiative, just go over here, click on the orc sheet. An interesting thing, you can send this to game log. You can send that image to game log for the players to see. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, cool. Cool. So if you have character art in the monster manual that the D&D Beyond has for that entry, you can share that. So that's pretty cool. But yes, you might have to go up here to dexterity, generate a dexterity roll, and then take that and just type in manually what the result is for their initiative. And type in an 11. So that I'll have to do as a takeaway. I really wish it wasn't lagging as bad as it is because of my streaming. So that's sort of how combat will work, and you can manage it right here in Above VTT, because I know D&D Beyond has its own initiative tracking system. But again, if you are running your game from the Above VTT dashboard, it's nice to keep it all here for the players. So that's kind of cool. And you can close that up by just clicking on it and it goes away. So that's sort of how you can run your game from sort of behind the scenes, so to speak. If you're doing Theater of the Mind and don't want to use the actual virtual tabletop, totally fine. And just use this as your sort of command center. I'm going to show you, we're talking about adding maps and such into the game. So if you want to use this as a, let's continue the theme of the Theater of the Mind type format. So you're not really ready to use a virtual table, but you want to have a nice, easy tool set all under one hood. You go over here, and you can basically, I have another one prepped right here, so I'll just do it. You can upload maps. So I'm going to go here to the internet, and I'm going to just type in D&D forest map. Okay, go to images here. Now, tons to choose from. Let's just take this one, for example. It's pre-gridded, looks like it. Yep. So I'm going to copy the URL. So I'm going to go down here and go and copy image link. I'm going to go back to my Above VTT, and I'm going to add a new scene. Create a new scene. It's going to pop up with a very slowly loading. There we go. So it's going to give me the option, D&D Beyond. I can pull from maps that are in my D&D Beyond library, which is really cool. So if I have modules and stuff I've purchased, I can literally pull them right from there. I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, and here's all the compendiums. And again, it does a great job of diving into your D&D Beyond library. And if you click on any of these, it'll pull up a list. It'll find all the maps that are listed in there, which means you can quite literally pull a map that the D&D handbooks have already provided if you don't want to go searching around for a custom one or make your own. So I'll kill this. I'm going to go custom URL because I found one on the internet that I like. So I'm going to go and click on it here. And it's going to pop up a tutorial on how to bring that in. The first thing you're going to see is scene title. So we're going to go to this and type it in. This is just from an organization point of view, keeping everything all nicely organized. Forest encounter. It's got a URL section, which I copied. So I'm going to put that there. I don't know what the use DM map is. Not sure what that is. Oh, only the DM will see this video. So I'm going to leave it there because I want my players to be able to see it. Now, snap to grid is an interesting one. I'm going to click it just to show you how it works. You don't need it, but it's kind of nice. If your map doesn't have a grid and you want it to have a grid, you can also go draw a grid and it'll pop up a wizard that will tell you how big you want the squares to be. But I'm going to go snap to grid. I'll show you how this works. Then I'm going to go save. So it's going to pull the map in. There we go. That's the map. But if you were picky like me and you wanted to snap to grid, I'm going to show you how that works. Okay, so I might have to go back in. And let's see here. So I'm going to use the Super Mega Wizard. I'm going to align to the grid that's there. And what it does is it says move the pointers of the map to define a 3x3 square on the map. Zoom in, top right button. So I'm going to zoom in. And I'm going to take these and I'm going to put it onto a 3x3 section of this map. So that one, and 3x3 will pull me. This is way better than Roll20 does it. 3x3. Okay, and then press when it's good enough. And we want each one to be 5 feet. And there we go. And I'll demonstrate that by pulling in a token so you can see. Get him on a... There we go. So snapping to the grid means it snaps to grid. So it's easy as that, bringing in a map. Now this is if you are using, so if you are deciding you want to use Above VTT as your virtual table versus just a workshop or a command center for you for Theater of the Mind sessions, you can do that. So when your players go to D&D Beyond and they've installed the extension, it will say join as player. When they do, they're going to come to whatever scene that you've laid out for them to start with. And you'll see over here that I have an option to just have the DM on the scene, which right now I would be the only one being able to see this. So if I wanted to do some prep work before the game started, this is where I do it. And if you want to bring the player into it, you just click on the player icon, and now on their screen, they're going to see this. And they're going to have the ability to move around their tokens. They're going to have the ability to right-click, pull up their character sheet from here. So they can literally use this as their command center as well. Although I probably would recommend that they keep a D&D Beyond tab open so they don't have to deal with all the other tools and such that are here in the virtual table. They can keep their mind focused on their character sheet. And also I don't know how the resources side of things work, but if they want to, they can just be right here and they can be opening windows, closing windows, but whatever they prefer. But here you go, you're going to see the D&D character sheet in its entirety. So any rolls the player makes are going to get stitched into the game log. So right here, if Danaos attacks with his dagger, my ever slow motion moving dice. But again, just to demonstrate, this does get stitched over to the game log, right? So if Danaos' player wants to keep that open, he can there. If he just wants to roll in D&D Beyond, that's fine as well. There are some other neat things here that you can do with tokens. There's notes, so you can create a note here on the fly. Basically pulls up a word pad, again formatted D&D Beyond if you're listening, where you can jot notes down attached to your token. Not only that, you can alter auras and such around the token, so you can enable token auras. You can also do dynamic lighting if you wanted as well. If you're a Dungeon Master, there's a tool in here where I can actually enable the map to be covered in darkness and dynamic lighting kicks in. It's probably going to be resource heavy, so I'm not sure if I'm going to enable that. Conditions and markers, which is a cool thing, right? So if you say to the player, hey, you've been charmed, you can click on that and it should pop up into over here. It shows that I have a note there. Oh. And it says right here, I've sent a charmed condition to him. So it says the DM would like to set you to charm. And then the player would go, okay, I guess I'm charmed. And he would toggle it to charmed. Oh, sorry to ask. Okay, so that's how you can sort of manipulate the tokens and such. I mean, standard things like AC hit points, that's cool. So you can do your hit point modification right on your token. Stitches back to D&D Beyond, I believe. Elevation, you can also factor that in. If the DM wants to say, hey, look, you're standing on a hill, there's a little cliff here, he can set an elevation distance as well. The DM can hide tokens. So Danaos, there'd be no reason for a player to hide the token, but if this was on a monster token, I could hide the token. So preparing an ambush, that sort of thing as well. So there's some options here that you can play around with. So that's sort of an overview of how you can manage using Above VTT as a really good tool set. I've been flip-flopping all across the board. I've got physical books writing notes. I'm going to still continue to write my notes physically because I like to have an archive that I can hand down to my kids in my later years of life when I've given up dungeon mastering, and they might not have access to these tools. So I do want to archive them. But if you are using D&D Beyond encounters and trying to juggle D&D Beyond into your current gaming, Above VTT is a great way to pull it all under one hood. Just remember that they have a great editor here as far as your chapters and your story goes. Feel free to go and enter them all in, but as a DM for life, I would definitely recommend that you keep an archive somewhere that isn't digital, because one day you might want to go over these notes and you don't have access to your computer. But the editor in this is a lot better than the one in D&D Beyond, light years ahead, and it allows you to customize it, give it images. You can read through it on screen. That has a little bit more visual cues to help you while you're playing. So it's just more flexible. So as the road continues to 1D&D and their virtual tabletop, I hope this has given you some options, some insight on how I run my games, and some of the options you can implement into yours. So thanks for tuning into the stream. I'm going to post this on YouTube as well in its entirety. So if you don't follow streaming, that's cool. You can check me out on YouTube on the official Game Nexus YouTube channel. So hope you guys all have a great afternoon. I'm going to go get ready for my session, and we'll talk soon.